this was published on The Score. You guys know The Score is I think they're more well known for their mobile app and their betting stuff, but they make content as well. This was a Q&A with, I don't know who, with two people. Uh, it doesn't, I don't think, I mean, it does say, but I'm not trying to find it. Um, oh, so it's like multiple consultants, economists, whatever. The headline of this article is What's Driving the Decline in NBA and NHL Attendance. And I thought this was very prescient because this article overwhelmingly points to COVID as being a factor. And it's undeniably, it is a factor. I just want to read a little bit of this article. Everyone has their own reasons to stay home, and those decisions add up. NBA and NHL attendance are way down from 2018-19, the last season in either league that COVID-19 didn't shorten. Through Thursday, 23 NBA and 23 NHL franchises were experiencing spectatorship decreases. Of those 46 teams, 27 have seen attendance dip by more than 10%. 8 teams are down more than 20%. These teams are spread across the US and Canada, but all are playing indoors during a pandemic that won't relent. The portion of United States sports fans who said they'd be comfortable going to games indoors doubled between March and July to peak at 53, according to survey data from intelligence company Morning Consult. But that trend cooled, and that figure has stalled below 50% throughout the fall. Outdoor attendance didn't boom in 2021. MLB's full season total slumped to a 37-year low, partly because of capacity restrictions. Yet, people seem warier about congregating under one roof. Now, I'm only going to speak about NBA teams in this regard and also about the United States because, at least when it comes to COVID and most of the other issues that I'm going to address in this little spiel, I can only speak to my experience living in the United States, and I can only speak to my expertise being in the NBA. There is a list of there's a list of all of the teams, all of the NBA teams here. It's 2 pages. The source is ESPN, and I'm probably going to turn this into the YouTube video. So as you guys can see, Oklahoma City, Indiana, Detroit, Sacramento, San Antonio, Orlando, Houston, Portland, Denver, the Clippers, the Wizards, the Grizzlies, the Cavs, the Warriors, the New York Knicks, New Orleans, every team, all NBA teams except for Phoenix, Minnesota, Boston, Chicago, Atlanta, and Brooklyn have seen drops in attendance. Those are the 23 teams that they were talking about. Now, I'm going to try to structure this as best as I can. The first point I want to talk about is COVID. COVID, the epidemic or the endemic, whatever it is, whatever describes the persistence of a certain contagion, has 100% deterred people from doing anything indoors, whether it's going to the movies, whether it's going to basketball games, whether it's going to hockey games, to the gym, going out to restaurants, whatever. COVID has deterred countless people from going to experience these things because even if you are vaccinated, the incoming variants, the different strains, are more likely to produce breakthrough cases because the vaccine that half the country got, the original COVID-19 vaccine, was only designed to, or it was designed to have the most efficacy against the original COVID strain. And then it fortunately lucked out that companies like Moderna and Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson, it was also quite effective against the Delta variant. But now we have this new variant, the Omicron variant that people are still studying that. We don't know what it'll be like here in the United States, but every new variant will be more resistant to the vaccine, which means that of course these companies will have to develop additional vaccines. COVID spreads more quickly indoors. It's significantly more transmissible indoors. We know this. All of the data cites this, which is why during the winter times, during the holiday season, whoever it is, Dr. Fauci, Dr. Tony Fauci, Biden, all of the higher ups in the federal government, they're like, winter is going to be bad because you have more people congregating inside for the holidays because of the weather, especially if you live upstate, especially if you live in the Northeast or in the Northwest or in the Central North. It's cold. You're not able to go out and do things outside, where being outside basically almost kills the virus on contact. The sun, the UV light from the sun, some shit like that, some scientific shit that I don't know about, automatically kills the coronavirus. Now, going to a basketball game is already very I could see why people are very wary, particularly older people, even younger people who are a little bit more selfless and worried about getting a breakthrough case and bringing it home to their parents or their grandparents. I think another thing that plays into it, and trigger warning, we are going to have a political discussion here. It's unfortunate that I have to place a trigger warning when talking about a fucking public health crisis, but unfortunately, because the virus has been so politicized, libtards like myself are more likely to be, I don't want to say afraid of the virus, but warier to expose ourselves to it. Now, where are sporting events, or should I say sporting venues, or just venues in general, where are most sports venues situated? In major cities. Major cities tend to be breeding grounds for people who identify as Democrats, liberals, whatever. Major cities are always more left leaning than rural parts of the country. Even major cities in Florida, Indiana, Texas, places like Miami-Dade County, places like Harris County, places like whatever county Indianapolis is in, they all voted blue. Now, obviously, that's not the greatest indicator of a county's politics, but major cities are always more liberal, and people who identify as more liberal are open to certain restrictions regarding the coronavirus, which means that they are more likely to, I don't want to like shit on anybody, but they are more likely to interpret the data and be like, maybe going to a sporting event at this time isn't the best idea. Now, of course, there are people who travel from other parts of these states to go see these games. I don't think that COVID alone is responsible for the drop in viewership or attendance, I should say, because the NBA has been dealing with this for a little bit. It's always been the talking point is that go woke, go broke, even though I felt that never had any substance. And it just allowed conservatives to do what they do best and talk about an issue, but not bring anything substantial to the conversation. It's all just woke politics bullshit. It allows them to escape the conversation. I think another thing that really impacts NBA attendance more than anything are the economic implications of going to a sporting event. The average price of one NBA ticket for the 2021-22 season is $211. The Golden State Warriors are the most expensive average ticket, about like I think the exact number was $568, which of course makes sense when you live in a place like San Francisco, which is exclusively for wealthy people only. You have to be making high six figures to afford to live in San Francisco. But the most inexpensive ticket, I forgot where it was specifically. I think it was either Oklahoma or New Orleans. $91, which is still a lot of disposable income that somebody needs to have. So we'll just work with the averages here to make the math easy. If you're a dad or if you're a mom and you want to take your son or your daughter to an NBA game, you're looking at $422 for the tickets alone. That doesn't include travel. And if you're traveling into a major city, you're most likely going to use public transportation. For me, I have to hop on the Long Island Railroad, which is $20 round trip, an extra $40 if you're living in New York or if you're living on Long Island. But I know that's not the average because I think the New Jersey Transit is quite inexpensive, but that's also because it's New Jersey. So let's say that you have to spend $15 on average round trip for two people. That's an extra $30. You're up to $450. And then if you want to go to the team store, little Billy, little Jill, I guess, whatever the fuck the default girl name is, they want to buy a jersey. They want to buy a Kevin Durant jersey. They want to buy a Zion Williamson jersey. You're looking at $80, $90, $100. So you're up to $500 for one night of entertainment. And that's still not including food and drinks. If you would like to not die of dehydration, while you're at the arena. That also doesn't account for parking. If you are masochistic enough to drive into a major city and pay for parking, it's so fucking expensive to go to a sporting event, especially if you live in a place like Indiana or Florida, where the minimum wage is 7.25 or 8.65 respectively. Do you know you have to work so many extra hours just for that one night of entertainment? And I'm sure that it's well worth it, especially if that's what your kid wants to do for the holidays, or if your kid is like, Daddy, I really want to go see the Lakers and fucking whomever. Like, if they're a Pacers fan, I really want to see LeBron when he comes to Indiana. And you're like, okay, but that's something that you have to save up for, because not many people in America have $500, $600 worth of disposable income. Do you know how much money that is? I'm sure you do. I'm sure you guys know how much money $500 or $600 is. That's groceries for a month. That's Christmas present money. And people save up all throughout the year just to give their kids a memorable Christmas. The economic implications, really the rise of the NBA and the wage stagnation that is rampant throughout the United States, has attributed more to the attendance or to the drop in attendance than anything else. Especially because when you consider how much easier it is for you to stay home and watch the game on TV because you already bought the TV. TVs are relatively inexpensive. I have a 40 some odd inch TV in my room. It's a smart TV. $250. It's more inexpensive, or it's less expensive to get a TV that you will get more use out of, that you'll be able to watch all of your team games on. And granted, you do have to pay for cable, which is an arm and a leg for a lot of people. You're looking at like $100 a month, but it's something that you're already buying. And then you can just buy snacks at Walmart when you go shopping. Like, you already have to go shopping and spend money on food, whether it's at Walmart or Target or Costco or wherever. And it's less of a headache. It is so maddening trying to get to an NBA game that it is not worth the hassle, because you have to deal with people on the train, the people who get belligerent on the train. I mean, if you live in New York, watching people exist on the train or on the subway is worth the trip itself, because, dude, the New York City metro system is undefeated when it comes to free entertainment. But I don't know if it's like that in other cities. It's an immense hassle to go out to a sporting event. I think, again, economically, that is more to blame for the team's drop in attendance than COVID is. Now, of course, there are the various contexts surrounding certain teams. So when you look at the attendance drops in Oklahoma City, in Detroit, in Sacramento, Houston, Portland, what do these teams have in common? These teams are worse off than they were a couple of years ago. Portland is kind of exempt to that rule because on paper they've improved, but they are off to a little bit of a slow start. And again, Portland is one of those like libtard breeding grounds. So I'm not surprised that if COVID played more of a role in that than anything else. But still, economically, it's fucking expensive to live in Portland, okay? Oklahoma City was projected to be the worst team in the league this season. Houston is one of the worst teams in the league this season. Detroit, one of the worst teams in the league this season. Another city that had a huge economic downfall from the shifting of manufacturing to outside of the United States. And when you look at the teams that have seen a boost in attendance, Brooklyn. Why do you think the Brooklyn Nets have seen a 10% boost in attendance? Because of literally one guy, Kevin Durant. They could have signed only Kevin Durant and they still would have been pulling 20 or 16, 17, 18,000 people. They had a record-setting night in terms of attendance this past, Friday? I think it was, either Friday or Saturday, when the Phoenix Suns came to Brooklyn. They were selling standing room only tickets. That's fucking insane. And it almost goes entirely against everything that I was just talking about with COVID, because Brooklyn is super libtard friendly as well. Oh, also, Chicago. Why does Chicago have a 3% increase in attendance? Why does Atlanta have a 3% increase in attendance? Because these teams are worth going to see, especially a team like Chicago that hasn't looked this good in almost a decade. Almost a decade. Now, one thing that I do find particularly interesting is that Utah averages exactly the same amount of fans from 3 years ago as they do now, 18,306. Same thing with Phoenix. Phoenix is only a 0.5% increase, but I think it really speaks to the diehard nature of those fan bases. So those two are the outliers to me, which I think is actually very fascinating. I want to read through the article, but I don't really want to because, again, it all goes back to mostly the COVID thing. I'm not trying to downplay the effects of COVID because, especially in the United States, we've just simply been unable to get this pandemic under control. Even in places like New York State, where it's something like 80% of New Yorkers are vaccinated to a certain degree. I don't remember if that is the full dosage complete or if that's everybody with one shot, but 80% is a staggering number for vaccinations, even in a state where it has certain pockets that aren't as liberal as some of the other places, because most people realize just how much of a good thing being vaccinated is. And even in a place like this, we're seeing a rise in hospitalizations, cases statewide or cases nationwide have been climbing. Granted, not as many people are dying because there are more vaccines, or there's like it's like an incalculable amount of vaccinations handed out, at least compared to last year. But it goes well beyond the COVID thing. The drop in attendance is part COVID, part economic. I think it's mostly economic. I don't think I can overstate the implications of economics in this discussion. I think obviously COVID is a huge thing, but I think this article is kind of, I mean, they touched on it. I don't want to act like these folks didn't because where's this paragraph? Right here. Do you think the pandemic has changed people's habits and the way fans consume sports? The pandemic probably accelerated the long-running trend of people improving the ability to watch at home. I'm old, right? I remember my family getting its first color TV. This guy's definitely old. I'm sorry, dude. You couldn't even see a puck on the ice, but nowadays everyone's got a 60-inch flat screen that's high def, and you can get every possible game from every possible league around the world live with the touch of a button, while being able to sit on your couch and not have to drink $14 beer, pay $25 for parking, and then share a bathroom with 1,000 other people. Like this guy, he said the quiet part out loud. It is not economically feasible for people to go see sporting events. It's simply not, especially not when the average ticket is $200. If you wanted to go by yourself, that's still a fucking insane amount of money to have just lying around. Good portion of Americans do not have that luxury. I think, like, what is it? Since the start of the pandemic, 63% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, which is up from like the usual 50. I think it's probably more than 50. Like, people simply don't have disposable income. I'm surprised that some of these aren't even down or cataclysmic. But then again, generally, wealthier people live in cities. People in San Francisco have that money to throw around. They can fucking throw around $1,000 to go see the Warriors play. Are you kidding? Of course they do. It's the fucking Silicon Valley. I guess just to wrap up this one, this fucking take was so long-winded, but COVID, yes, but more so than that, the economics of just going to see a basketball game.